The plasma bolt missed Danny Carter's head by inches. He rolled behind a crystalline boulder as 3 more shots shattered the ground where he'd been standing. His squad was pinned down on all sides, and the Krillian warriors weren't letting up. Danny was 19, the youngest in his unit by 3 years, and right now he wished he'd listened to his mother about joining the Colonial Defense Force. Captain Morris screamed orders from behind a fallen tree. The mission was supposed to be simple. Land on Krillia Prime, retrieve the stolen human colonists, and get out before the Royal Guard noticed. Instead, they'd walk straight into an ambush. 50 Krillian soldiers surrounded their position and reinforcements were coming. Danny checked his rifle. 2 magazines left. Not good. He glanced at Lisa Hammond beside him. She was bleeding from a shoulder wound, but still firing controlled bursts at the advancing enemy. On his other side, Kevin Price was unconscious, a massive gash across his forehead. The Krillians were tall, 7 feet of scaled muscle with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like hot coals. They moved fast, too fast for creatures that size. Danny squeezed off 3 shots, dropping one that got too close. Then the firing stopped. Complete silence fell over the battlefield. Danny's heart hammered in his chest. This wasn't right. The Krillians never stopped an attack once they started. They fought until everyone was dead or captured. A horn blew, deep and resonant. The Krillian soldiers lowered their weapons and stepped aside. Through the gap came a procession of guards in golden armor, and between them walked someone who made Danny's blood run cold. Princess Zaranith was everything the intelligence reports said and more. 8 feet tall, covered in midnight blue scales that caught the light like sapphires. 4 arms, each ending in clawed hands that could tear through steel. Her face was angular, almost reptilian, but her eyes were disturbingly intelligent. She wore armor made of some material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid, and on her head sat a crown of what looked like frozen lightning. She surveyed the battlefield with the bored expression of someone inspecting livestock. Her gaze passed over Captain Morris, over Lisa, over the other survivors. Then her eyes locked onto Danny and everything changed. The princess stopped walking. Her guards tensed, hands moving to weapons. She raised one hand, pointing directly at Danny with a clawed finger. When she spoke, her voice carried across the battlefield like thunder. "He will be mine." Danny felt every eye turn toward him. The princess started walking again, this time directly toward his position. Her guards fell in behind her, weapons ready but not raised. Captain Morris shouted something, but Danny couldn't hear over the blood rushing in his ears. Lisa grabbed his arm. What did she just say? The princess was 20 feet away now. 15. 10. Danny raised his rifle, but his hands were shaking. He'd fought in 6 battles since joining the defense force. He'd killed enemy soldiers and watched friends die, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Princess Zaranith stopped 5 feet away. Up close, she was even more terrifying. Her scales rippled with an inner light, and her breath came out in small clouds of frost, despite the warm air. She studied Danny like a scientist examining a new specimen, tilting her head first one way, then the other. Captain Morris found his voice. "Princess, we're here under the Galactic Convention. We have rights as prisoners of war." The princess didn't look away from Danny. "Your rights end where my desires begin, human. This one has been chosen. He will come with me to the royal palace. The rest of you will be processed according to protocol." Danny finally managed to speak. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The princess smiled, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. "Oh, but you are, young warrior. You see, I've been searching for a very long time. Searching for someone special, someone unique. And you, Danny Carter, are exactly what I need." Danny's mind reeled. How did she know his name? The princess stepped closer, and despite himself, Danny took a step back. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Do not fear. I mean you no harm. Quite the opposite. You have qualities that are extremely rare even among your kind. Courage mixed with compassion, strength tempered by wisdom, and something else, something I have never encountered before." "What are you talking about?" Danny's voice came out as barely a whisper. The princess reached out with one hand, stopping inches from Danny's face. "In time you will understand. For now, know this. You have 2 choices. Come with me willingly, and your squad lives. They will be returned to human space unharmed. Resist, and they die here, now, while you watch. Then you come with me anyway." Captain Morris raised his weapon. "Don't listen to her, Carter. We don't negotiate with these creatures." The princess moved faster than Danny's eyes could follow. One moment she was in front of him, the next she had Morris by the throat, lifted off the ground with one hand. Her other 3 hands held weapons pointed at Lisa, at Kevin, at every other survivor. "Choose quickly, young warrior. My patience has limits." Danny looked at his captain struggling in the princess's grip. He looked at Lisa, her face pale with pain and fear. He thought about his mother back on Earth, about the little sister he'd promised to see again. Then he dropped his rifle. I'll go. Just let them live. The princess released Morris, who collapsed, gasping. She turned back to Danny, and her expression softened slightly.
A wise choice. You are already proving yourself worthy of my attention.
2 guards moved forward and grabbed Danny's arms. They were surprisingly gentle, but their grip was unbreakable. The princess nodded to her commander, who barked orders in the Krylian language. The other guards began herding the human survivors toward a transport ship. As they led Danny away, he heard Morris shouting, "We'll come for you, Carter. We'll get you back." The princess walked beside Danny, matching his pace. "No, you will not. By the time your people realize what has happened, it will be far too late. Danny Carter belongs to me now, and what I take, I never surrender." They reached a massive transport ship, nothing like the military craft Danny expected. This was clearly a royal vessel, covered in intricate designs and glowing with internal light. The guards pushed him up the ramp, and the princess followed close behind. Inside, the ship was even more impressive. Walls made of living crystal pulsed with energy. The floor felt warm beneath Danny's feet, as if the ship itself was alive. Guards lined the corridors, all wearing the same golden armor, all watching Danny with curious eyes. They stopped before a large door that opened at the princess's approach. Beyond was a chamber that took Danny's breath away. It was enormous, easily the size of his entire barracks back on the colony. Furniture made from materials he couldn't identify filled the space. In the center was something that looked like a throne mixed with a bed, covered in fabrics that shifted colors in the light. The princess dismissed the guards with a wave. They left immediately, closing the door behind them. Now Danny was alone with her, and his fear spiked again. She moved to a table and poured liquid from a crystalline decanter into 2 cups. She offered one to Danny. "Drink. It will calm your nerves and heal any injuries you sustained in battle." Danny didn't take it. Why me? There were older soldiers, more experienced fighters. Why choose me? The princess set both cups down and turned to face him fully. "Because age and experience are not what I seek. I need someone young enough to adapt, strong enough to survive, and pure enough in spirit to withstand what comes next." "What comes next? What are you planning?" The princess moved closer, and Danny forced himself to stand his ground. "I am planning to save my people, young Danny, and you are going to help me do it." "Your people? The Krylians don't need saving. You're one of the most powerful species in the galaxy." The princess's expression darkened. "Power is meaningless without survival. My people face extinction. A plague spreads through our population, killing billions. Our scientists cannot stop it. Our priests cannot cure it. Our warriors cannot fight it. We are dying, Danny Carter, and soon there will be no Krylians left in the universe." Danny felt a flicker of sympathy despite his situation. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand what that has to do with me." The princess reached out and touched his face with one clawed hand. He flinched but didn't pull away. "Everything, young warrior. It has everything to do with you, because you, and only you, carry the key to our salvation in your very blood." The ship lurched as it lifted off. Through a window, Danny watched the battlefield grow smaller. He saw his squad being loaded onto another transport. At least they were alive. For now, that would have to be enough. The princess moved away, settling onto her throne. "Rest now. Tomorrow, your training begins. You have much to learn about your new role in my court." "Training?" Danny's mind raced. "What kind of training?" The princess smiled, that unsettling smile again. "You're to be my consort, Danny Carter, my partner, my mate. And together, we will forge an alliance between our species that will change the course of galactic history." Danny felt the world tilt beneath him. This couldn't be happening. This had to be some kind of nightmare. But the warmth of the ship beneath his feet, the weight of the princess's gaze, the ache in his muscles from battle, it was all too real. He was 19 years old, the youngest warrior in his squad, and he'd just been claimed by an alien princess who intended to make him her mate. His life as he knew it was over. Something new was beginning, something terrifying. Something that would test him in ways he couldn't begin to imagine. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, and Danny Carter disappeared into the unknown reaches of space, a prisoner of destiny and desire. The royal palace on Krylia Prime made human architecture look like children's blocks. Spires of living crystal reached toward the 3 moons that hung in the purple sky. Danny stood on a balcony overlooking gardens filled with plants that moved and breathed like animals. 2 days had passed since his capture, though it felt like a lifetime. Princess Zarneth had been true to her word. Danny's squad was returned to human space unharmed. He'd seen the transmission himself. Watch them board a human frigate at the neutral zone border. Captain Morris had looked directly at the camera, his message clear. We will come for you. But Danny knew better. The Krillian Empire didn't negotiate, didn't trade prisoners, and certainly didn't give back what the royal family claimed as property. A servant entered his chamber, one of the smaller Krillians who served the palace. This one was female, barely 6 feet tall, with pale green scales. She bowed deeply before speaking in accented but clear English. The princess requests your presence in the transformation chamber, honored consort. Danny hated that title, honored consort. As if he'd chosen this. As if he was here willingly. But arguing did nothing. He tried that the first day, and the princess had simply smiled and explained that his consent was assumed by his continued existence. He could choose to cooperate, or he could choose to be difficult. Either way, her plans would proceed. He followed the servant through corridors that seemed to shift and change. The palace was alive in some way Danny didn't understand. Walls moved aside to let them pass. Floors rose and fell to create stairs or ramps. Doors appeared where none had been moments before. Everything was organic, flowing, connected. They entered a chamber that made Danny stop in his tracks. It was massive, circular, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. In the center was a pool of liquid that glowed with inner light, and around it stood a dozen Krillian scientists in white robes. Princess Zaraneth waited beside the pool, wearing simpler clothing than her battle armor, but no less impressive. She smiled when she saw him. Danny, thank you for coming. Today we begin the integration process. Danny's stomach tightened. Integration? What does that mean? One of the scientists stepped forward, an older Krillian with gray scales and kind eyes. Please do not be alarmed. The process is painless and will grant you abilities beyond your current physical limitations. You will be stronger, faster, more resilient. You will be able to breathe our atmosphere without assistance and tolerate our gravity with ease. Danny looked at the princess. You're going to change me, turn me into something I'm not. The princess moved closer, her 4 hands clasped in what might have been a gesture of supplication. We are going to help you survive, Danny. As you are now, you would die within weeks on my world. The gravity alone would crush your bones. The atmosphere would burn your lungs. You would age rapidly and suffer constantly. This is not cruelty. This is mercy. And if I refuse, then you die slowly and painfully while I watch my people continue to die around me. Is that what you want? Danny thought about his family, his friends, the life he'd left behind. He thought about the colonies depending on him and soldiers like him to protect them. Then he thought about the Krillian children he'd seen in transmissions dying from the plague the princess described. Whatever else she was, whatever her methods, she was trying to save her people. He took a deep breath. What do I have to do? The scientists moved into position around the pool. The princess gestured for Danny to approach. You must enter the pool and submerge yourself completely. The liquid contains nanomachines that will integrate with your cellular structure. They will rewrite your DNA, enhance your muscles and bones, modify your organs to function in our environment. The process takes approximately 6 hours. Danny walked to the edge of the pool and looked down. The liquid swirled with colors he had no names for, beautiful and terrifying at once. Will I still be human when it's done? The princess came to stand beside him. You will be something better. Human and Krillian merged. The bridge between our species, the first of a new kind. Danny stripped off his shirt and boots, professional interest taking notes on devices that floated beside them. He sat on the edge of the pool and dipped his feet in. The liquid was warm, almost hot, and it tingled against his skin. He thought about his little sister Amy, who loved to build model ships and dream of space. He thought about his mother, who'd cried when he enlisted but never tried to stop him. He thought about the future he'd imagined for himself, a future that no longer existed. Then he slid into the pool and let the liquid close over his head. The pain started immediately. Not terrible at first, just a burning sensation across his skin. Then it intensified. It felt like every cell in his body was being taken apart and put back together. Danny tried to scream, but the liquid filled his mouth and lungs. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but endure. Through the agony, he felt changes happening. His bones lengthened and strengthened. His muscles tore and reformed, denser and more powerful. His heart stuttered, stopped, then restarted with a stronger, steadier rhythm. His eyes burned as they adapted to see in different spectrums of light. Time lost meaning. 6 hours felt like 6 days. Danny drifted in and out of consciousness, each time waking to new sensations, new abilities, new understanding of what he was becoming. Finally, the pain began to fade. The liquid drained away, leaving Danny lying on the floor of the pool, gasping. He felt different. Everything felt different. His senses were overwhelmed with information. He could hear conversations happening in distant rooms. He could smell individual scents from the scientists, each one unique and identifiable. He could see the energy flowing through the walls of the chamber, patterns of light invisible to human eyes. Strong hands lifted him from the pool. The scientists wrapped him in warming blankets and began their examinations. They measured his heart rate, his strength, his reflexes. They spoke to each other in rapid Krillian, their voices excited. Princess Zaraneth knelt beside him, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked truly happy. The integration was successful beyond our predictions. Your body accepted the changes completely. How do you feel? Danny tried to speak, but his voice came out wrong, deeper and resonant, like I've been rebuilt from scratch. Because you have been. The princess helped him sit up. Your strength is now equal to our warriors. Your lifespan has been extended to match ours. You can survive in our atmosphere, tolerate our gravity, eat our food. You are, in every practical sense, one of us now. Danny looked at his hands. They looked mostly the same, but his skin had a faint shimmer to it, and when he concentrated, he could see subtle patterns moving beneath the surface. What have you done to me? We have given you the ability to fulfill your destiny. The princess stood and offered him a hand. Come. There is much more to show you. Over the following days, Danny learned the extent of his transformation. He could lift weights that would have crushed his old body. He could run at speeds that made him a blur. His reflexes were so fast that he caught objects before his conscious mind registered they were falling. The scientists explained that the nanomachines hadn't just changed him physically. They'd enhanced his neural pathways, increased his processing speed, expanded his cognitive abilities, but with the abilities came complications. Danny's human emotions warred with new instincts he didn't understand. He felt drawn to the princess in ways that terrified him. When she was near, his heart rate increased and his mind filled with thoughts he didn't want. The scientists explained that the integration included pheromone receptors that made him compatible with Krillian biology. He was being programmed to desire her, and there was nothing he could do about it. The princess seemed to sense his struggle. She came to him one evening as he stood on his balcony watching the moons rise. She approached quietly, but Danny's enhanced hearing caught her footsteps long before she arrived. You are troubled, she said softly. Danny didn't turn around. You're turning me into your perfect pet. Of course I'm troubled. Is that what you think? The princess moved to stand beside him. That I wish to dominate you? To break you? What else should I think? The princess was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to speak, her voice carrying a weight of sadness Danny hadn't heard before. 200 years ago, our people discovered something. A genetic weakness that had been part of our species since the beginning. It remained dormant for millennia, but then something triggered it. A cosmic radiation burst from a dying star, perhaps, or exposure to a foreign pathogen. We do not know. But suddenly, our immune systems began to fail. She gestured at the palace around them. We tried everything. We quarantined the sick.
We developed treatments. We begged the other species for help.
Nothing worked. The plague spread faster than we could respond. Within 50 years, our population dropped by half. Within 100, 3/4 of us were gone. Now, after 2 centuries, we number less than 5% of what we once were. Danny finally looked at her. I'm sorry for your people, but I still don't understand what that has to do with me. The princess met his gaze. Our scientists discovered something remarkable about human DNA. It contained sequences that could counteract our genetic weakness. But simple blood transfusions did not work. Genetic therapy failed. We needed something more. A complete biological integration between our species. Danny's eyes widened.
The princess nodded.
A child born of both our peoples would carry the genetic keys to save my species. But such a union would require more than just biology. It would require genetic compatibility at the deepest level, which is why we searched so long to find the right human. And you think I'm the right human. I know you are. The princess moved closer. When I saw you on that battlefield, I felt something I had never experienced before. A connection. A resonance between our life forces. The scientists confirmed it with their scans. Your genetic structure is uniquely compatible with mine. Together, we could produce offspring that carry the cure for my people's extinction. Danny turned away, his mind reeling. So that's it. You chose me to be a breeding stud. To father your hybrid children and save your species. The princess's voice hardened. I chose you to be my partner, my equal. The father of a new generation that will bridge our peoples and change the galaxy forever. This is not about dominance or submission. This is about survival and evolution. Danny laughed bitterly. You kidnapped me. You forced me to undergo genetic modification. You're manipulating my body chemistry to make me attracted to you. How was any of that partnership? The princess was silent for a moment. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down on the balcony floor, folding her forearms in her lap. In my culture, this is the posture of humility and apology.
Danny stared at her. What are you doing?
I am acknowledging that you are right. I have taken away your choices. I have forced you into a situation you did not want. I justified it because my people are dying, but that does not make it right. You are not property. You are not a tool. You are a person with your own hopes and dreams, and I have stolen them from you. Danny felt his anger falter. This was the last thing he expected. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. The princess looked up at him, and her eyes held genuine sorrow. Because pretending this is anything other than what it is would be another cruelty. You were chosen not because you wanted this, but because I needed you. And I am sorry. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Danny spoke. If I agreed to help you, if I chose this willingly, what would that look like? The princess stood slowly. It would look like a true partnership. You would have voice in all decisions. You would be treated as royalty, not as property. Your people would be granted favored status in our empire. Trade agreements, protection, technology sharing. You would not just be saving my species. You would be elevating yours. And if I say no, if I refuse despite everything? The princess met his gaze steadily. Then I will have the scientists reverse the integration process as much as possible and return you to human space. My people will die, but that will be our burden to bear, not yours. Danny studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. You would really do that? Let me go. I would. Because forcing you to stay, to be with me against your will, would make me no better than the tyrants and slavers our people fought against for centuries. I am many things, Danny Carter, but I am not that. Danny thought about everything he'd learned, everything he'd experienced. He thought about the Krillian children dying of the plague. He thought about the potential for peace between their species. He thought about the young warrior he'd been just days ago, fighting on that battlefield with simple, clear objectives. That warrior was gone. He could never go back to being that person. The question was, what kind of person would he become? He took a deep breath. I need time. Time to think, to understand what this means. Can you give me that? The princess nodded. Take all the time you need. I have waited 200 years to find you. I can wait a little longer for your answer. She left him alone on the balcony, and Danny watched the alien moons cross the purple sky. His old life was gone. His body was changed. His future was uncertain. But for the first time since his capture, he felt like he had a choice. And that made all the difference. The training complex was a marvel of Krillian engineering. Gravity fields that could be adjusted from Earth normal to crushing weight. Holographic enemies that fought with intelligence and adaptability. Weapons that responded to thought as much as touch. Danny spent his days here, learning to use his enhanced abilities, testing his limits, pushing beyond what he thought possible. His instructor was a warrior named Kaeltorn, an older Krillian male who'd served in the Royal Guard for over a century. Despite his age, he moved like liquid lightning, and he'd made it his mission to ensure Danny understood what it meant to be Krillian. Again, Kaeltorn commanded as Danny faced 3 holographic opponents. They attacked simultaneously, and Danny's enhanced reflexes allowed him to track all 3. He dodged the first, blocked the second, and struck the third with enough force to shatter its projection. Better, but you are still thinking like a human. Kaeltorn moved into the training circle. Humans fight with strategy and planning. We fight with instinct and flow. Stop thinking. Start feeling. I don't understand the difference. Kaeltorn moved faster than Danny could track and knocked him flat. That is the difference. You thought about defending.
You planned your response. By the time you executed, I had already struck...
The instructor offered a hand to help him up. Fighting is not a puzzle to solve. It is a dance to perform. Danny accepted the help and got back on his feet. In human combat training, we learn to think 3 moves ahead, and that is why you will lose against a skilled Krillian opponent every time. Kaeltorn reset the holograms. We do not think 3 moves ahead. We exist in the eternal now, responding to each moment as it unfolds. Watch. The instructor faced the 3 holograms alone. They attacked from different angles, but Kaeltorn flowed between them like water. He didn't block attacks so much as not be where they were. He didn't counter-strike so much as allow his opponents to place themselves in positions where his strikes naturally landed. Within seconds, all 3 holograms were destroyed. You see? Kaeltorn wasn't even breathing hard. No thought, only action. Danny tried again, attempting to clear his mind and trust his instincts. It was harder than it sounded. His human brain wanted to analyze, to plan, to think, but he forced himself to let go, to simply react. The holograms attacked, and this time Danny didn't try to predict them. He let his enhanced body move on its own. The difference was immediate. He flowed through the training circle, his movement smooth and natural. He dodged, struck, spun, and attacked in a continuous motion that felt almost meditative. When the last hologram fell, Danny stood in the center of the circle, amazed at what he'd just done. Canthorn bowed deeply. Now you begin to understand. The instructor deactivated the training field. The princess chose well when she claimed you. You have the warrior's gift. Over the following weeks, Danny's training expanded to include more than just combat. He learned Krillian language, history, and culture. He discovered that the Krillians were not the savage conquerors human propaganda portrayed. They were a sophisticated civilization with art, music, philosophy, and a complex code of honor that governed every aspect of their society. He also learned about the plague in greater detail. Scientists showed him genetic maps, explained the mechanisms of the disease, demonstrated how it destroyed Krillian immune systems from within. They showed him projections of extinction timelines. Without intervention, the Krillian species would be gone within 3 generations. But they also showed him hope. Computer models of hybrid offspring, children who would carry the best of both species. Strong, intelligent, resistant to disease, capable of surviving in multiple environments. These children would not replace Krillians or humans. They would be something new, something better. Danny found himself spending more time with Princess Zaranith. She was different when they were alone, less formal and more open. She told him about her childhood, about growing up in a palace that grew emptier each year as the plague claimed her relatives. She'd had 7 siblings. Now she was the only one left. She asked about his life, too, and Danny told her about growing up on a colony world, about his parents who worked the terraforming stations, about his sister who wanted to be an engineer. The princess listened with genuine interest, asking questions, remembering details, treating his stories with the same importance as he treated hers. One evening, they walked through the palace gardens together. The plants here responded to the princess's presence, leaning toward her as she passed, blooming in her wake. Danny found himself fascinated by the interaction. They're drawn to your life force, he observed. The princess smiled. All living things on Krillia Prime are connected through quantum entanglement at the cellular level. It is why our world feels alive to you. Because in a very real sense, it is. Danny touched a flower that glowed with bioluminescence. On Earth, we have nothing like this. Our connection to nature is more distant. Perhaps that is why your species adapted so well to space travel. The princess sat on a bench carved from living wood. We Krillians never wanted to leave our world. We were forced to expand because the plague made staying too dangerous. We colonized other planets hoping the change would cure us. It did not. Is that why you were fighting us? To take our colonies? The princess shook her head. We were fighting because your colonies encroached on regions we had marked as quarantine zones. We tried to warn you, but your military commanders believed we were being territorial. Both sides made assumptions. Both sides were wrong. Danny sat beside her. So much death and destruction because we couldn't communicate properly. Such is the tragedy of first contact between species. The princess looked up at the moons. But perhaps something good can come from it. Perhaps our peoples can find peace through understanding. Or through forced genetic integration, Danny said. But there was no bitterness in his voice, just acknowledgement of reality.
The princess turned to face him.
I have not asked you recently. How are you feeling about everything? About your transformation, your training, your situation? Danny considered the question carefully. Honestly, I'm conflicted. Part of me is still angry about being taken against my will. But another part of me recognizes the opportunity here. I'm learning things no human has ever learned. I'm becoming something unique, and I'm potentially helping to save an entire species from extinction. The princess reached out with one hand and gently touched his face. You have grown much in these past weeks. Not just physically, but in spirit. You are becoming the warrior I saw on that battlefield. Strong not just in body, but in character. Danny felt that pull again, that attraction he knew was partly chemical, but felt increasingly real. The princess was beautiful in her own way, alien but captivating. Her intelligence matched his own now that his brain had been enhanced. Her strength called to something primal in him, and beneath it all was something he hadn't expected to feel. Genuine affection. Can I ask you something personal? Danny said quietly. Of course. Why haven't you pushed? Since bringing me here, you've been patient, given me space, let me make choices. That's not what I expected from someone who claimed me as property. The princess was quiet for a moment. Because I realized something after our conversation on the balcony. I do not want a prisoner or a slave. I want a true partner. Someone who chooses to stand beside me not someone forced to do so. And that requires patience, even if it means I might choose to leave. Even then. The princess stood and offered her hand. Come. There is something I wish to show you. She led him deeper into the gardens, to a section he hadn't seen before. Here, the plants grew taller, wilder, forming a natural cathedral of living wood and glowing flowers. In the center was a pool of water so clear it looked like liquid crystal. This is the heart pool, the princess explained. It is the most sacred place on Corellia Prime. When a royal chooses a mate, they bring them here to bind their life forces together in a ceremony as old as our civilization. Danny looked around at the serene beauty. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand what I am offering. This is not about breeding or genetics or politics. This is about two people joining their lives together in the deepest way possible. If you choose to accept, if you choose me, this is where our bond would be sealed. Danny felt the weight of the moment. This was real. This was the princess offering him not just partnership, but something approaching love. Not the manipulated attraction of pheromones, but genuine connection between two beings who'd come to know and respect each other. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the palace. The peaceful garden transformed into chaos as guards rushed into position. Kale Torn appeared, his face grim. Princess, we have a situation. A human military fleet has entered our space. They are demanding your return, specifically mentioning Danny Carter by name. The princess's expression hardened. How many ships? 37, including 3 dreadnoughts? They have not opened fire, but they have positioned themselves for attack. They are giving us 1 hour to surrender Danny or face military action. Danny felt his heart sink. His people had come for him. The rescue he'd once hoped for was finally here. But now, after everything he'd learned and experienced, he wasn't sure he wanted to be rescued. The princess turned to him. The choice is yours, Danny. I will not hold you against your will. If you wish to return to your people, I will escort you to them myself. But know this, if you leave, the opportunity for peace between our species may die with your departure. Danny looked at Kale Torn, who had become not just an instructor but a friend. He looked at the palace that had become surprisingly familiar. He looked at the princess, this complex, powerful, vulnerable woman who had placed the fate of her entire species in his hands. Then he looked up at the human fleet holding position above the planet, 37 ships carrying thousands of soldiers who believed they were here to save him, soldiers who would die if shooting started, soldiers like he used to be, following orders without understanding the bigger picture. He made his decision. I need to talk to them, Danny said firmly, but I'm not leaving. Not yet. Not until we resolve this properly. The princess searched his face. You are certain? Danny nodded. I'm certain, but we need to make them understand. We need to prevent a war. The princess smiled, and there was pride in her expression. Then let us go speak to your people, warrior. Together. They left the heart pool and headed for the palace command center where the fate of 2 species would be decided. Danny felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was 19 years old, transformed into something between human and alien, caught between 2 worlds, and about to become either a bridge between species or the spark that ignited a war. He thought about his mother, his sister, Captain Morris and his squad. He thought about the Corellian children dying of plague. He thought about the future, uncertain and terrifying and full of possibility. Whatever happened next, Danny Carter would face it standing beside Princess Zaraneth, not as her prisoner or her property, but as her chosen partner. And together, they would find a way to save both their peoples or die trying. The command center occupied the highest tower of the palace, a circular room with walls that displayed the space around Corellia Prime in real time. Danny stared at the human fleet arrayed before them. 37 ships, each one bristling with enough firepower to level cities. At the center of the formation was the UEF Valiant, a dreadnought-class vessel that served as flagship for the Colonial Defense Fleet. Admiral Patricia Hayes commanded from the Valiant. Her face filled one of the display screens, her expression carved from granite. This is Admiral Hayes of the United Earth Forces Colonial Defense Fleet. We are here to retrieve our soldier, Private Danny Carter, who was unlawfully taken from a battlefield 6 weeks ago. You have 30 minutes to release him, or we will consider ourselves at war with the Corellian Empire. Princess Zaraneth stood before the screen, her forearms clasped in a gesture of diplomatic greeting. Admiral Hayes, I am Princess Zaraneth of the Corellian royal family. Private Carter is here of his own free will. He is unharmed and free to speak with you directly. The princess gestured, and Danny stepped forward. He knew how he must look to his own people. Taller now, skin shimmering with alien enhancement, eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light, he'd become something they wouldn't quite recognize. Admiral Hayes' expression shifted from anger to shock. Carter? Is that really you? Yes, ma'am. Danny's voice was deeper, resonant with harmonics that hadn't been there before. I understand you're here to rescue me, but I need you to listen carefully to what I have to say. Soldier, have you been coerced? Threatened? Are they holding something over you? No, ma'am. Danny chose his words carefully. When I was first taken, I was a prisoner. But things have changed. I've learned things about the Carillions that weren't in our intelligence reports. Things that change everything. Hayes' eyes narrowed. Explain. Danny took a deep breath. The Carillions are dying, Admiral. A genetic plague is wiping out their species. In 200 years, they've lost 95% of their population. They have maybe 3 generations left before extinction. That's why they've been so aggressive. They're desperate. A new voice cut in from another ship. This is Colonel Frank Morrison, commander of the 3rd Assault Fleet. With all due respect to Private Carter, this sounds like Stockholm Syndrome. The Carillions are known for their psychological warfare tactics. I know how it sounds, Danny said firmly. I thought the same thing at first, but I've seen their hospitals, their dying children, their empty cities. This isn't propaganda. This is real. And if we destroy them now, we'll be committing genocide against a species that's already on the brink of extinction. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. Even if what you're saying is true, that doesn't excuse them taking you by force. You're a soldier of the UEF. You have rights under the Galactic Convention. Rights that I'm choosing to waive, Danny said. The princess gave me a choice. She offered to reverse the genetic modifications they made to me and return me to human space. I chose to stay. Genetic modifications? Hayes' face paled.
What did they do to you?
They enhanced me. Made me compatible with their biology and environment. Danny held up his hand, letting the scales beneath his skin become visible. I'm stronger, faster, more resilient. I can survive on their world, eat their food, speak their language. I've become a bridge between our species. The princess moved to stand beside Danny. Admiral Hayes, what I did to secure Danny was wrong. I admit this freely. I acted out of desperation and fear for my people. But he has become more than I could have hoped for. He has become a true partner, someone who understands both our worlds, someone who can help forge peace between our species. Peace? Colonel Morrison's laugh was bitter. You want peace? You've attacked our colonies, killed our soldiers, and now you've taken one of our own and turned him into some kind of hybrid experiment. Why should we believe anything you say? Because the alternative is war, Danny said quietly. And in war, we all lose. Your fleet can destroy this palace. You can kill the princess and probably me along with her. But the Carillion Empire is vast. They have hundreds of worlds, billions of soldiers. If you start this fight, it won't end until one of our species is extinct. Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke carefully. Private Carter, I've known your mother since she was transferred to our colony 10 years ago. She's a good woman, and she's worried sick about you. How am I supposed to tell her that her son has chosen to stay with aliens who kidnapped him? Tell her I'm trying to prevent a war, Danny said. Tell her I'm trying to save lives on both sides. Tell her I'll come home when the work is done, but right now I'm needed here. The princess touched Danny's shoulder gently. Perhaps there is a way to satisfy both our concerns. Admiral, I propose a diplomatic solution. Allow a delegation from your fleet to visit the palace. Let them see our situation with their own eyes. Let them meet with our scientists, our civilians, our children. Let them verify Danny's claims independently. And if we refuse, Hayes asked, then you will go home having accomplished nothing except possibly starting a war that will cost millions of lives. The princess's voice remained calm. Or you can take this chance to understand your enemy and perhaps discover they are not your enemy at all. Danny watched the Admiral's face as she considered the offer. He could see the conflict there. She was a warrior, trained to trust strength and suspicion. But she was also a leader, responsible for the lives of everyone in her fleet. Starting a war based on incomplete information would be reckless. Finally, Hayes nodded. Very well. I'll send a diplomatic team. But understand this, Princess. If any harm comes to them, if this is some kind of trick, my fleet will reduce your palace to dust. Are we clear? Perfectly clear, Admiral. The princess bowed. Your delegation will be received with full diplomatic honors. They may bring their own security, their own recording equipment, their own scientists. We will hide nothing from them. The transmission ended, and Danny felt tension he hadn't realized he was carrying Drain away. The crisis was averted, at least for now. But he knew this was just the beginning. Convincing the delegation would be the real challenge. The princess turned to her advisors. Prepare the guest quarters. Make sure our scientists have their research ready for presentation. This is our chance to show humanity the truth. We cannot waste it. Over the next few hours, the palace transformed into a center of diplomatic activity. Guest quarters were prepared. Scientists organized their data and prepared presentations. The royal guard was instructed to be respectful but vigilant. Everyone understood what was at stake. Danny found himself in his chambers, staring at his reflection. He looked more alien now than human. The changes were subtle but undeniable. His eyes glowed faintly. His skin had that shimmer. His body was larger, more muscular, proportioned slightly differently than a normal human. He'd become something new, something in between. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in." Canthorn entered, carrying a bundle of cloth. "The princess thought you might wish to dress formally for the delegation's arrival. This is traditional clothing for a royal consort." Danny took the bundle and unfolded it. The clothing was beautiful, made from materials that felt like silk but glowed with subtle inner light. It was clearly alien, clearly Krillian, but there were human touches too. The design incorporated elements from both cultures. "Tell the princess thank you," Danny said, "and tell her I'll do my best to make this work." "You are already making it work, young warrior." Canthorn placed a hand on Danny's shoulder. "When the princess first told us of her plan to claim a human mate, many doubted. We thought she was grasping at desperate solutions. But you have proven us wrong. You have shown that our species can coexist, can cooperate, can even come to care for each other. I'm just trying to do the right thing. That is all any of us can do." The instructor bowed and left Danny to prepare. An hour later, Danny stood beside Princess Zaranith in the palace landing bay as a human shuttle descended. He wore the formal clothing, and the princess had dressed in her finest armor, the kind she wore for ceremonies rather than battle. Together they presented a united front, human and Krillian standing as equals. The shuttle landed, and the ramp extended. Admiral Hayes emerged first, flanked by 4 Marines in full combat gear. Behind them came a group of scientists in civilian clothing, all carrying equipment and recording devices. Last came Captain Morris, Danny's old commanding officer. Morris's eyes widened when he saw Danny. "Carter? My God, what did they do to you?" "They saved my life, Morris." Danny stepped forward. "And now we're going to save a whole lot more." Admiral Hayes looked between Danny and the princess. Show us why we shouldn't start shooting right now."
The princess gestured toward the palace. "Follow me, Admiral."
"We will show you everything." The tour lasted 3 days. The princess and her scientists showed the human delegation everything. They visited hospitals where Krillian children lay dying, their immune systems destroyed by the genetic plague. They toured research facilities where scientists worked desperately to find a cure. They met with civilians who'd lost entire families to the disease. The scientists shared their genetic research, explained why human DNA held the key to a cure, demonstrated why simple therapies had failed. They showed computer models of hybrid offspring that could carry resistance to the plague and pass it on to future generations of Krillians. They also shared their history. The delegation learned that Krillians had been peaceful for most of their existence, only becoming militaristic after the plague started. They learned about Krillian art, music, philosophy. They discovered a rich culture that human intelligence reports had completely missed. Admiral Hayes spent hours speaking with Krillian civilians, soldiers, scientists. She interviewed Danny extensively, testing his mental state, checking for signs of coercion or brainwashing. She came away convinced that he was acting of his own free will, even if that will had been shaped by extraordinary circumstances. On the final day, Hayes met privately with Princess Zaranith and Danny in the royal chambers. "I've seen enough. This isn't the situation I expected to find. You're not monsters. You're refugees, fighting for survival." "We are both," the princess said quietly. "Survival does not excuse the atrocities we've committed.
We have killed humans in our desperation.
We have taken worlds that were not ours. We have been aggressive and hostile. All of this is true. But you're also dying," Hayes said. "And in your situation, I'm not sure humanity would behave any better." "Does that mean you'll help us?" Danny asked. Hayes looked at him carefully. "Private Carter, what you're proposing is unprecedented. A genetic merger between species. Hybrid children who will be neither human nor Krillian. Do you understand the implications?" "I'm living the implications, Admiral." Danny gestured at himself. "I'm the proof it can work. I'm not less human because I have Krillian DNA. I'm not less myself because I've been enhanced. I'm just more than I was." Hayes turned to the princess. "If we agree to this, if we support genetic integration between our species, we'll need guarantees. Protection for the humans who participate. Rights for any hybrid children. Complete transparency about the process. You will have all of that and more." The princess stood and moved to a table where a document waited. I have prepared a treaty. It outlines everything you have requested, plus additional provisions for trade, technology sharing, and military alliance. All we need is your signature and approval from your government. Hayes read the document carefully. This is more generous than I expected, because this is not about conquest or domination. The princess met her gaze steadily. This is about survival and cooperation. Your people gain access to Krillian technology and military protection. My people gain the genetic key to their continued existence. Both species benefit. And Private Carter? What happens to him? That depends on him. The princess looked at Danny. He has always had the choice to leave. Danny shook his head. I'm staying, at least until we know the integration is working. Until we're sure the hybrid children are healthy and the cure is effective, after that, maybe I'll visit Earth. Maybe I'll become an ambassador between our worlds. But for now, my place is here. Hayes stood and extended her hand to the princess. Then I'll recommend approval of this treaty to my superiors. I can't guarantee they'll agree, but I'll fight for it. The princess took her hand carefully, mindful of her claws. That is all I ask, Admiral. A fair chance to prove we can coexist. Over the following weeks, Danny watched as both species adjusted to the new reality. The treaty was approved, though not without controversy. Some humans saw it as capitulation to an enemy. Some Krillians saw it as weakness, a betrayal of their warrior culture. But enough people on both sides saw the wisdom of cooperation. The first volunteer humans arrived on Krillia Prime. Scientists, doctors, and a few brave individuals willing to undergo the genetic integration process. They were all carefully screened, all volunteers, all fully informed of the risks and implications. Danny helped with the integration, sharing his experience, offering support and guidance. The first successful hybrid pregnancies were announced 3 months after the treaty signing. Both Krillian and human mothers carried children who would be the bridge between their species. The medical teams watched closely, monitoring every aspect of the development. Danny stood beside Princess Zaranith as they reviewed the latest medical reports. The children were healthy, growing normally, showing all the signs of success. The genetic cure seemed to be working exactly as predicted. We did it, the princess said softly. We actually did it. We're not done yet. Danny pointed at the timeline. These children need to be born healthy. They need to grow up strong. They need to be able to pass on the resistance to future generations. We're at the beginning, not the end. Always the warrior, the princess said with a smile. Always looking ahead to the next battle. Someone has to keep us grounded. The princess took his hand, her clawed fingers gentle against his transformed skin. I am glad it is you. I am glad fate brought you to that battlefield. I am glad I had the courage to claim you, even though I did it poorly. And I'm glad I had the courage to stay. Danny squeezed her hand, even though it terrified me. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the medical displays, thinking about the future. The heart pool waited for them when they were ready, the ceremony that would bind their lives together. But there was no rush. They had time now, time to build trust, time to build love, time to build a future for both their peoples. Outside the palace windows, the 3 moons rose over Krillia Prime. In orbit, human and Krillian ships patrolled together, former enemies, now allies. On the planet's surface, mixed teams of scientists worked side by side in laboratories, seeking answers to challenges that affected both species. And in the palace, Danny Carter stood beside Princess Zaranith, no longer the youngest warrior captured on a battlefield, but a bridge between worlds, a symbol of hope, and the father of a new generation that would change the galaxy forever. The war was over. The real work was just beginning, and Danny was ready for whatever came next.